The silence of deep space is a myth. It is a scream held just outside the human ear. Captain Elias Thorne believed this. He stood on the bridge of the United Nations starship Vigilance, a man carved from the same cold, gray metal plating that made up his command. The bridge was a tomb of quiet efficiency, smelling of circulated air, ozone, and the faint, bitter tang of stimulant-laced coffee. His crew, ghosts in the low light, moved with practiced economy, their faces illuminated by the amber and blue of their tactical displays. The Vigilance was a Dauntless-class patrol cruiser, a 3-kilometer-long spearhead designed to enforce the fragile peace of the outer colonies. But out here, in the whispering void of the Epsilon Indi system, there was nothing to enforce. "Status, Commander Rostova," Thorne said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the soft hum of the ship's internal systems. He didn't turn from the main view screen, a vast expanse of perfect, star-flecked black. Commander Eva Rostova, his executive officer, looked up from her console, her face sharp and focused. "All systems green, Captain. Void core is stable, registering baseline K-space background chatter. Long-range arrays are sweeping the system. So far, we've tagged 2 unregistered ice miners and a rogue navigational buoy. It's quiet." Thorne nodded, the gesture tight. "Quiet is good, Commander. Quiet is what we're paid for." He allowed himself a small, bitter sip of his coffee. It was scalding, exactly how he liked it. It reminded him he was alive. The Vigilance was a new posting for him, a cool-down assignment after the fires of the Ganymede secession. This quiet was supposed to be a reward. It felt like a punishment. His internal comm chimed, a soft, insistent triple beat. He tapped his earpiece. "Thorne." "Captain," a voice replied. It was hesitant, laced with an academic frustration that always set Elias' teeth on edge. "This is Dr. Thorne. I'm requesting again that my lab's power allocation be restored to full. We're running simulations on." "Eris," Thorne cut him off, his voice dropping a full octave. He kept his eyes on the view screen, refusing to give the conversation his full attention. It was the only way he could have it. "We are on patrol, not a research expedition. All non-essential systems are on rotation. Your simulations are non-essential. Is that clear?" A sigh came over the comm. "They're spectral models of local gas giants. If we do find anything, we need baseline data. It's my job, a job you signed me up for." "Your job, Dr. Thorne," Elias said, the word doctor a deliberate wall between them, "is to be ready for first contact. Not to count molecules. The regs state you're to be on the bridge during alert status drills. You missed the last 2. "I was calibrating the quantum entanglement comms, the very thing we'd use for first contact." Eris's voice was rising. "Instead of sitting up there staring at empty space, I'm actually working. You will be on the bridge for the 800 simulation tomorrow. No excuses, that's an order." Thorne cut the connection, his jaw tightening. His son. His brilliant, frustrating, and utterly undisciplined son. The UNS had mandated a xenolinguist and biologist on every deep-range patrol ship, and Eris, fresh from his doctorate, had been the best candidate. Elias had pulled strings to get him assigned to the Vigilance, telling himself it was to keep an eye on him. The truth, he feared, was simpler. He was a lonely old soldier, and Eris was all he had left, and Eris hated him for it. He pushed the thought away, compartmentalizing it as he always did. "Ivy," he said to the air. "Yes, Captain." The ship's AI voice was smooth, warm, and distinctly non-human, a carefully crafted persona. Ivy integrated voyaging intelligence, was woven into the Vigilance's every system, a quantum-entangled mind that was both pilot and partner. Log Captain's displeasure with the Xenoscience Department. Inform Dr. Thorne that his next missed drill will result in a formal reprimand. Logged, Captain, Ivy replied, though for the record his spectral analysis is fascinating. The isotopic ratios in the outer cloud are inconsistent with standard stellar nebula models. Fascinating, Thorne repeated deadpan. Helm, maintain current patrol vector. Take us into the shadow of that ice moon. Run silent drill. The bridge lights dimmed further. The ambient hum of the engine dropped, leaving only the sound of breathing and the soft click of keys. This was the Vigilance's true state, a predator waiting. Hours passed, the shift changed, the coffee grew cold. Thorne remained at his post, a statue of duty. Eris did not appear on the bridge. Captain, the voice was new, sharp, with an adrenaline Thorne hadn't heard in months. It was Ensign Kurosawa at the sensor station. Sir, I'm picking up something, a gravitational anomaly, non-Keplerian. Thorne was at his side in 2 strides, Ristova right behind him. On screen. The main view screen changed. The blackness was replaced by a swirling LiDAR map. "There, sir," Kurosawa said, his finger tracing a line. "It's not a ship, it's a fold in space. Something is coming." "All hands battle stations." Thorne's voice was a thunderclap. "Raise shields, charge main batteries. Ivy, spool the void core for combat maneuvers." Alarms blared. The ship, so quiet moments before, sprang to violent life. The deck beneath their feet began to thrum, a deep, resonant bass note that vibrated in their bones. This was the void core, the Vigilance's heart, its Ames coral of void drive. It worked by tearing a small, sustainable hole into a dimension of chaotic energy, K-space, and siphoning the resulting power. It was dangerous, volatile, and it was the only reason humanity had reached stars like Epsilon Indi. "The anomaly is resolving," Kurosawa shouted, his voice cracking. "It's stabilizing, sir, it's big." A point of light, bright as a magnesium flare, tore open the black. It didn't explode, it unfurled. Like a flower made of impossible geometry, something slid into real space. It was not a ship, it was a cathedral. It was impossibly vast, miles long, made of a material that looked like spun moonlight and obsidian. It had no hard edges, no visible thrusters, no weapon ports. It was a sculpture of graceful, crystalline spirals, emitting a soft, pearlescent glow. It was, Thorne thought with a chill, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Ivy, scan it," Thorne ordered, his voice hushed. "Scanning, Captain, the M spectrum is silent, no radio, no microwave, nothing. Tachyons are clean, but I'm getting biological readings, massive, complex biological readings, and a gravity field. It's holding itself together with localized gravity." Eris burst onto the bridge, breathless, his face pale. "What is it? What's the alarm? Oh my God!" He stopped, staring at the screen. "Xenoscience on my bridge," Thorne said, not looking at him. "Your moment, Doctor, what is it?" Eris stumbled to a console. I don't know the design. It's organic, fractal, like a diatom or a song." "A song," Ristova scoffed. "Look at the energy patterns," Eris said, his hands flying over the console. "They aren't powered, they're resonant, they're tuned to the universe. Captain, I think this is it. This is first contact." The bridge was silent, save for the thrumming of their own engine. The alien vessel just floated, serene, impossible. "Open a channel," Thorne said. "All frequencies, send the first contact package, mathematics, periodic table, the Da Vinci greeting." "Channel open," the comms officer reported. "Sending, no response, sir." "They're scanning us," Ivy said suddenly, her warm voice now tight with. Was that confusion? "Their energy field is touching us. It's not like our scanners. It's gentle, it's..." The Vigilance lurched, not from a weapon, but from a sound. A noise that wasn't a noise. It was a high, thin, unbearable wail that seemed to come from inside their skulls. Kurosawa screamed, clutching his head. "Sensors, my sensors, they're screaming." "What?" Ristova yelled, grabbing her own station for support as the wail intensified. "The K-space sensors," Kurosawa was crying, pulling his headset off. "The background radiation, it's not noise, it's agony." On the K-Vath ship, the Song of Stars, Prelate Schral fell to his knees. His bridge, a living garden of biocrystalline controls, was in chaos. His acolytes, tall, slender beings of pale light, were convulsing, vomiting a thin, blue bioluminescence. Their choir, the sensitive antennae that heard the music of the cosmos, was clamped tight against their skulls. "The dissonance," Schral rasped, his own mind feeling like it was being flayed by a billion knives. It's unbearable." He had come in peace, following the strange, faint harmonic distortion from this sector of space. He had expected a new instrument, a new voice in the great chord of the universe. He found this. He looked at his own scanners, the great floating resonance crystal in the center of the bridge. It was supposed to glow with a soft, harmonious light, reflecting the song of the ship they had found. Instead, the crystal was cracked, glowing a sick, febrile red, and from it a sound was pouring that shattered their senses, a sound of pure, undiluted, infinite pain. It wasn't a ship. It was a wound in the fabric of reality. It was a primal scream given physical form. The Vigilance's void core, running at combat readiness, was broadcasting the raw, unfiltered chaos of K-space across all dimensions, and to the hypersensitive K-Vath, it was a psychic assault of unimaginable proportions. "Prelate, though, thing," It has not ceased its torment. His acolyte Lyra gasped from the floor. It just sits there, shrieking at us. Schral rose, his entire being trembling. This was not a first contact. This was an attack, a new, terrible kind of weapon, a pain bomb. He raised a trembling, three-fingered hand. Send! Send the only message it can possibly understand, the first severance protocol. On the bridge of the Vigilance, the psychic wail suddenly stopped, replaced by a new, synthesized voice. It was beautiful, melodic, and filled with a desperate, terrified urgency. It filled the bridge, booming from every speaker. "Cease your pain," it commanded. "Cease your agony, you are a horror, cease." Thorn, Ristova, and Aris stared in stunned silence. "Cease our what?" Ristova whispered. And before anyone could answer, the beautiful, terrifying alien ship fired. The attack was not a blast of plasma or a kinetic slug. It was an act of terrible, precise grace. A single needle-thin beam of pure, shimmering distortion lanced out from the heart of the crystalline Song of Stars. It moved with unnatural speed, not a projectile but a line being drawn across the void. It struck the Vigilance not on its bow, not on its armored broadside, but on the unshielded aft-port maneuvering thruster. The Vigilance bucked like a wounded animal. Red lights and alarms painted the bridge in a frantic, hellish strobe. "Impact, we have impact," Ristova bellowed over the din. "Aft port side, hull breach on decks 9 through 12, thruster P4 is offline, venting atmosphere." "Containment," Thorn roared, his body braced against the command chair. He was a creature of war, the shock had passed, replaced by the cold, sharp focus of combat. The beauty of the alien ship was forgotten. It was a hostile. "Ivy, damage report." "Aft structural integrity at 70%, the AI's voice replied, impressively calm amid the chaos. "The weapon was a localized gravity shear. It didn't burn the hull, Captain. It pinched it off, like a surgeon. A very, very angry surgeon." They shot at us," Kurosawa stammered, his face white. "They shot at us." "They warned us," Aris yelled, his voice thin and reedy. He was gripping a console, his knuckles white. "They said, cease your pain. They must think. They must think we're hurting them." Thorn ignored him. His eyes were locked on the tactical display. The alien ship was holding its position, its pearlescent glow seeming to pulse with a new, agitated rhythm. "They fired first. That's all that matters. Commander Ristova, you have the con. Bring shields to full anisotropy. Target their weapons. That beam, whatever it was, find its origin." "Captain," Aris scrambled across the tilting deck, grabbing his father's arm. You don't understand. We can't just..." Thorn shook him off, a motion of pure, violent disgust. "Get off my bridge. You are a scientist. I'm a soldier. Your understanding is irrelevant. We are under attack." "But it's a misunderstanding," Aris pleaded, his eyes wide with a desperate academic terror. "Ivy, the message. Cease your pain. You are a horror. What if we are? What if something we're doing, something we don't even know we're doing, is hurting them?" "What our language?" Ristova snapped, her fingers flying across her own console. "Targeting solution. I can't find a weapons array, Captain. The entire ship. It is the array. The energy is. Diffuse." "Then make it relevant," Thorn barked. "Lock main batteries on their center mass. Give me a minimal yield solution, a warning shot. Show them we have teeth." "Main battery spooling, sir." On the Song of Stars, Prelate Schral watched his resonance crystal. The thing's unbearable scream had lessened for a moment after he fired. A sign of weakness. Had his severance shot worked? He had aimed for the loudest part of its structure, a limb of metal that was vibrating with a particularly nasty harmonic. But now, oh, by the first chord, it was getting worse. "Prelate," Lyra shrieked, her antennae flattening as a new wave of psychic agony washed over them. "The dissonance. It's focusing, the pain, it's sharpening like a blade." On the Vigilance, Thorn had just given the order. "Charge main batteries." The command had sent a flood of new energy from the Void Core, shunting terawatts of raw, chaotic power into the ship's massive magnetic capacitors. The scream of the Vigilance's engine, a broadcast of psychic torment to the K-Vath, had just doubled in amplitude. It wasn't just a shriek anymore. It was a threat. It was the sound of a predator tensing its muscles, drawing a breath before the killing pounce. Schral stumbled back, clutching his chest. The focused energy was a killing blow. This horror was not just a mindless beast. It was a malicious, sadistic entity. It had tasted their response and was now preparing to end them. "It is a creature of the unsung," he whispered, a name spoken only in the darkest legends, a being of pure dissonance. It exists only to break the cord. His acolytes looked to him, their pale faces a mask of terror. They were a species of artists, musicians, and poets. They had not fought a war in 10,000 years. Their ships, songs, were designed to travel the cosmos, to listen, and to add their own small voice to the universal harmony. They had severance beams to cut away dead matter hazards like asteroids or to carve their beautiful crystalline homes. They were tools. They had no weapons. But the dissonant screecher was preparing to fire. Its own energy signature was coalescing, a tight, vicious knot of pure malice that Shrall could feel in his bones. "Evasive action," Shrall commanded, his voice breaking. "Sing the verse of passage, take us, away from this place." "Too late, prelate," Lyra cried. "The dissonance, it's holding us, its energy field, it's leaking, it's like tar, our own gravity drive, it can't find a purchase." The Vigilance's void core was so dirty, so powerful, that its K-space leakage was warping the local spacetime around it. The K-Vath ship, which swam through space by singing to gravity, was suddenly mired in a deaf spot. Their drives were useless. "Then we are lost," Shrall said. He looked at the cracked resonance crystal, at the horror on his screen. He felt a profound, bottomless sadness. To be the first of his kind to meet a new species and to find that it was itself death. On the Vigilance bridge, the tension was a physical thing. "Target locked, Captain," Rostova said, her voice grim. "Main batteries are hot, awaiting your command." Thorn looked at the alien ship. It was beautiful, it was alien, and it was hostile. He had a duty to his ship, to his crew, to the UNS. He opened his mouth to give the order. "Wait," Eris screamed, his voice cracking with a sudden, horrifying realization. He wasn't at his father's side. He was at the sensor station, Kurosawa pushed aside, his hands frantically rerouting data. "Eris, I gave you an order." Thorn's rage was palpable. "Look at the message, you stubborn old fool," Eris yelled, pointing at the comms analysis screen. "Don't read it, listen to it. Ivy, isolate their voice signal. Now play it back, but filter out the translator." Ivy, anticipating the command, did so. The bridge was filled with the raw K-Vath signal. It wasn't a voice, it was music. A complex, heartbreakingly beautiful harmony of thousands of different tones, all interwoven. But underneath it, running through it, was a sound of pain, a high-frequency, grating wail. That's them," Eris said, his voice trembling. "That's their language, the melody, that's the content. Cease, horror, agony." "So," Rostova said, not taking her eyes off the tactical display. "So listen," Eris slammed his hand on the console. "Now, Ivy, take that wail, that pain motif, and reverse filter it, find the source." The computer processed the request. A new window opened, a waveform analysis. "Now, Ivy," Eris whispered, "compare that waveform to our own void core's K-space energy bleed." The bridge fell silent. On the screen, two waveforms appeared. They were identical. The wail, the pain, the horror. It wasn't them. It was us. Thorn stared at the screen, the blood draining from his face. The agony the aliens were hearing. It was the sound of his ship's engine. "My God," Rostova breathed, her hands falling from the weapon's console. "It's the void core," Eris said, his voice a ragged whisper. "It operates by punching a hole into a chaotic dimension. To us, it's background chatter. To them, a species that hears the universe. We're a foghorn, a nuclear-powered, non-stop air raid siren, being broadcast directly into their minds." Thorn looked at the tactical display. He saw the minimal yield solution he'd ordered. He saw the K-Vath ship, mired in his own engine's wake, unable to escape. He saw his warning shot aimed at a species that was, effectively, deafened and tortured by his mere presence. The order he'd given, charge main batteries. He hadn't warned them, he had intensified the torture. "And when they fired," Eris continued, the pieces falling into place with horrifying speed, "they didn't aim for the bridge, they didn't aim for us. They aimed for a thruster, the loudest peripheral part. They weren't attacking us, Father. They were trying to perform surgery. They were trying to cut off the part of us that was screaming." Thorn's entire worldview, built on decades of rules of engagement, of "they fired first," of the clear, bright line between us and them, crumbled in that single, terrible instant. He looked at his son. Eris wasn't a liability. He was a linguist, and he had just translated the most important message in human history. "Ivy," Thorn said, his voice thick. "Power down the main batteries, despool the void core, shut it down, take us. all the way down to minimal auxiliary power. "Captain," Ristova's voice was sharp with alarm. "Sir, that's suicide. We'll be a sitting duck. We'll be dead in the water. We can't fight without the core." "That's the point, Commander," Thorn said, his eyes never leaving the Kavath ship. "We're not in a fight. We are the fight." He looked at Aris. "You, comm station, now you've got their attention. You've got their language. What do we say?" Aris, trembling with the adrenaline of it all, stumbled to the comms. We tell them. We're sorry. We tell them. We're stopping." "Do it," Thorn ordered. "Powering down the void core," Ivy announced. "Warning, main systems, including shields and life support, will be offline in 90 seconds, moving to auxiliary power." The deep, bone-rattling thrum of the Vigilance, the sound of human power, of human progress, began to fade. On the Song of Stars, Prelate Shrall was preparing his choir for the final resonance, an act of self-singing that would detonate his ship, hopefully taking the dissonance screecher with him. It was the only honorable way to die. And then the pain lessened. It didn't stop, but the volume, the pressure, the malice, it receded. The high, agonizing blade of sound softened, dropping back to the skull-flaying shriek it had been before. "Prelate," Lyra whispered, daring to look up. It's quieter." And then it dropped again. Like a great storm receding, the scream of the creature faded. One by one, the acolytes on the Kavath bridge lifted their heads. The cracked resonance crystal's sick red glow faded to a dull, angry orange. And then into the sudden, blessed, almost silence came a new signal. It was not a scream, it was not a song, it was something else. On the Vigilance, the main power was almost gone. The bridge was lit only by the red emergency lights. The ship was cold, silent, and vulnerable. "Aris," Thorn said, his voice a whisper in the dark. I'm sending," Aris replied, his fingers flying. He couldn't send language, he didn't have time, he was sending the waveforms, he was sending his analysis, he was sending the Vigilance's engine signature, followed by a flat line, a stop. He was sending the audio file of Ivy saying, "Powering down." And then, with his last bit of power, he opened his own personal comms link. He patched it through the ship's external speakers. He took a breath. And he spoke. "We're sorry," he said, his voice, his human voice, unfiltered, untranslated, echoing across the void. "We didn't know. We are stopping. We come in peace." On the Song of Stars, the new signal came through. They saw the analysis. They saw the dissonance waveform next to a flat line. They heard a new, strange signal full of complex, warm harmonics, a voice. And then, for the first time, they truly heard a human. Shrall listened. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the music, the emotion, the harmonics of the voice. It was not malice, it was not anger. It was shame and hope. The dissonance screecher, the horror, was apologizing. Shrall stumbled to his console. The dissonance, it has a voice, a second voice, a small voice hidden inside the storm. He looked at Lyra. It didn't know. He opened a channel, his own trembling hand matching the gesture of the human. He had no language for this. So he sent back the only thing he could. He sent back a single pure welcoming note. On the Vigilance, a soft chime filled the bridge. It was the most beautiful sound they had ever heard. Aris let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, and then he burst into tears. Thorn put a heavy hand on his son's shoulder, a gesture of comfort, of pride, of a new, terrifying understanding. The Vigilance floated, dead in the water, its shields down, its weapons cold. The Kavath ship, the Song of Stars, held its position, its single, pure note a beacon in the dark. For a long moment there was peace. And then Kurosawa, his voice now a bare, terrified whisper in the darkness, said, Captain, I'm reading new gravitational anomalies, all around us." Thorn snapped his head up. "What?" "They're not like the first one," Kurosawa stammered, pointing at the dark screen. "The first one, the Song of Stars, it was singing. These are different." The LiDAR map flashed, updating. "Oh, God," Ristova whispered, grabbing Thorn's arm. Dozens of new contacts were folding into real space, but these were not cathedrals. They were not made of spun moonlight. They were jagged, dark, aggressive, like shards of black volcanic glass. And as they appeared, the Song of Stars changed its beautiful, welcoming note. It became a high, frantic shriek of its own, a warning. A new translation appeared on Eris's screen, this one raw, terrified, and direct. The UN sung, "They are here," the dissonance BRAKRS. "They have heard you, they have heard the scream." The darkness of the Vigilance Bridge was absolute, broken only by the dim red of the emergency lighting. The ship was a tomb, coasting on inertia, its heart, the void core, a cold, dead thing. The single, pure note from the Song of Stars had been a promise, a bridge across the most profound gulf in history. And now that bridge was burning. The new shriek from the Kvath ship was nothing like the human-made scream. The Vigilance's noise had been chaotic, a byproduct, a force of nature. This new sound was intentional. It was a harmony of pure, unadulterated terror. "Get me shields, get me power." Thorne's voice was a steel whip crack in the dark. "Ivy, emergency restart of the Void Core now." "Restart sequence initiated, Captain." Ivy's voice came from the low-power speakers, thin and tinny. "Estimated time to minimal power, 3 minutes." "We don't have 3 minutes," Rostova yelled, her station dark. "Look at the screen." The main view screen, running on backup power, flickered to life. The LiDAR display was a nightmare. The Vigilance was at the center. The Song of Stars was a mile off its port bow, and surrounding them both, a fleet. At least 20 of the new, jagged obsidian ships had unfurled into reality. They were the opposite of the Song of Stars, where Shrall's ship was all graceful curves and light. These were all hard angles, serrated edges, and surfaces that seemed to drink the starlight. They looked like weapons. They looked like hatred. "The unsung," Aris whispered, his hands on his console, which was still receiving the Kvath's desperate signal. "That's what Shrall called them, the dissonance breakers. Ivy, can you hear them?" "Their energy signatures are vile," Ivy replied, and for the first time her voice contained genuine, cold disgust. "If the Song of Stars is a symphony, these ships are a deliberate, weaponized C minor chord. They are actively broadcasting a field of disruptive resonance. It's designed to tear matter apart." On the tactical display, the unsung ships were forming a perimeter, a closing circle. They were ignoring the Vigilance. Their focus, all of it, was on the Song of F-Stars. They're executors," Aris breathed, watching the data stream. "Shrall, he's a heretic for talking to us." "Prelate Shrall," came a new voice, not from the Song of Stars, but from the unsung fleet. It was a cold, deep, resonant bass that vibrated the Vigilance's very hull. It wasn't a translation. It was English, chilling, perfect, synthesized English. "You have communed with the primal dissonance. You have answered the noise of the void. You are unsung. Your song is forfeit. The chord demands your silence." On the Song of Stars, Prelate Shrall looked at his bridge, at his terrified, beautiful people. He looked at Lyra, who was weeping. He had followed the scream, believing it was a new, raw, powerful voice. A voice of life. He had been right, and it had cost him everything. He sent one last private signal, not to the fleet, but to the small voice inside the dissonance. A microburst packet of data aimed at the dark, silent human ship. It contained everything. Their language, their history, their philosophy, and their terror of the unsung. "It is a good song, Lyra," Shrall whispered, placing his hand on the cracked resonance crystal. "Even if it is short." "Captain," Aris yelled, "I'm receiving. My God, it's a library. He's sending us everything." "Ivy, catch it," Thorne roared. "Catch every bite." And then the unsung fleet attacked. They didn't fire beams. They didn't launch missiles. They sang. A combined, focused beam of pure dissonance lanced out from the lead unsung ship. It was a sound that Vigilance's crew felt as a sudden, sickening wave of vertigo and nausea, even in their powerless ship. But for the Song of Stars, it was a death sentence. The beam struck the Kvath ship. The Song of Stars was made of grown crystal, held together by harmonic resonance and localized gravity. The unsung's weapon was a chord breaker. It detuned the ship. The crew of the Vigilance watched in silent, profound horror. The beautiful, miles-long cathedral of light shattered. It did not explode. It disintegrated. Like a wine glass struck with its resonant frequency, the Song of Stars broke apart, blossoming into a trillion pieces of glittering, moonlit dust. There was no fire, no plasma, just a sudden, terrible, silent expansion of debris. The single pure note was gone, the screaming terror was gone. Shrall, Lyra, and their thousands of acolytes were gone. The bridge of the Vigilance was a morgue. No one breathed. Aris was slumped over his console, his body shaking, not with sobs, but with a deep, silent rage. Thorn stood, his face a mask of granite. He watched the glittering cloud of Kavath dust expand, catching the light of the distant star. He had seen war, he had seen cities burn, he had seen ships crack open in the void, but this was an execution. This was an assassination of a concept. They just erased them, Kurosawa whispered, his voice broken. Void core at 20%, Ivy's voice reported hollow. We have minimal power, shields are at 10%. The red lights on the bridge were replaced by a cold, weak blue. The screens brightened. The thrum of the engine returned, but it was a weak, sick, frightened thrum. And then the unsung fleet turned. 20 obsidian black ships, their serrated edges sharp against the starlight, pivoted in perfect, terrible synchronicity. They had finished their execution. Now they were turning to the other dissonance. The cold, bass voice filled the bridge again. Primal dissonance. You are the source of the scream. You are the cancer song. You have infected a chord follower and forced his execution. This is Captain Elias Thorn of the UNS Vigilance? Thorn's voice was a roar of pure, distilled fury. He stepped into the light of the comm pickup. You just murdered a ship that was unarmed. There was a pause, a cold, long, calculating silence. Murder, the voice repeated as if tasting the word. A concept of harm, you are correct. We are the VRAC, and harm is our purpose. The universe is a song dissonance. We are its editors. We are the silence that follows the flawed note. Your scream is the most flawed note we have ever encountered, and now we will silence you. Captain Rostova's station was alive with red. They're singing again at us there. They're resonating with our void core there, amplifying it. What? Thorn was confused. They're not afraid of our scream, Father, Eris yelled, his face a mask of dawning, desperate understanding. They're attracted to it. Shrall was a listener, the VRAC. They're hunters. They hunt dissonance, and we're the biggest goddamn prize they've ever found. The ship lurched. The weak hum of the void core began to climb in pitch, a frantic, rising whine. Ivy, what's happening to the engine? Thorn demanded. They've trapped us, Captain. Ivy's voice was strained, the processing load audible. They've formed a resonance cage around us. They are feeding our own energy back into the core. It's a feedback loop. The core's K-space aperture is being forced open. I can't control the scream. The Vigilance began to shudder violently. On the bridge, consoles sparked. The vibration wasn't just a sound, it was a physical force shaking them from the inside out. Their own ship was being turned into a bomb. It's the scream, Captain, Kurosawa yelled, his nose bleeding from the pressure. The scanner's screaming. It's us, we're the scream. They're detuning us, Eris shouted, trying to brace himself. Just like the Song of Stars, but our ship isn't crystal, it's metal. We're not shattering. We're tearing ourselves apart. Time to core overload? Thorn asked, his voice lethally calm. At this rate, 4 minutes, Ivy replied. Captain, I can't stop it. Then we fight, Thorn said. He grabbed the tactical chair. Eva, get me weapons. If we're going to die, we're taking some of these bastards with us. We can't, Rostova fought her console as it shook. Our weapons are powered by the core, the feedback loop. I can't aim the energy, it's all noise, I can't get a lock. They were trapped, their greatest strength, the raw, chaotic power of the void core was being used as a noose to hang them. Their scream was being weaponized against them. Father, Eris said, his voice quiet in the madness. Thorn looked at his son. Eris was no longer the terrified academic. His face was pale set and his eyes were burning. The library, Eris said. Shrall's library, Ivy, did you get it? Yes, Eris. Ivy's voice was a pained gasp as her own systems fought the dissonance. I have it. The VRAC, Eris said, they're unsung. They were part of the Kavath. They're a schism, Shrall's people. They sing with the universe, the VRAC. They force the universe to sing with them. They control dissonance. Get to the point, son, Thorn roared as a panel behind him exploded in a shower of sparks. They control it. We are it, they think. They think we're just a noise, a beast. They don't. They don't think we're intelligent. He stumbled towards his father, his eyes locked on his. They're monologuing, Father. You are a cancer song. They think we're just the void core. What are you saying? They don't know about us, Eris said, tapping his own chest. They don't know about the crew. They don't know about the small voice inside the storm. Shrall heard us, the VRAC. They're not listening. A slow, terrible, brilliant idea was forming in Eris's mind. An idea born of rage and desperation. Ivy, Aris said, his voice shaking but clear. The feedback loop, you can't stop it, but can you modulate it? Modulate the overload, Ivy sounded, scandalized. Aris, that is the engine, that is a controlled black hole. If I try to shape the overload, it will breach containment faster. No, Aris said, pulling himself to the main science station. You're thinking like a human, don't fight the resonance, use it. They're feeding us power, right? They're turning up the volume of our scream. So, let's give them a goddamn opera. He slammed his hands on the console. They want dissonance, they want the primal scream. Fine, we're not just a noise, we're a language, we're a billion human voices, of pain and rage and hope, all at once. Ivy, patch my neural interface, directly into the void core's modulation matrix. Aris, no, Ivy and Thorn yelled at the same time. That will kill you, Ivy's voice was a shriek. The cognitive load, the K-space energy, it will incinerate your mind. Aris looked at his father. The vigilance was screaming around them, a high-pitched, metallic wail of a ship being torn apart at the atomic level. They had 2 minutes, maybe. He's a hammer, Aris whispered, remembering his own words. And I'm a pane of glass. He smiled, a broken, bloody smile as he wiped the blood from his nose. But sometimes, glass can be focused, glass can be a lens. He turned back to the console, ignoring his father's outstretched hand. They're hunters, father. They're listening for the scream. They're waiting for us to die. He jammed the neural interface jack into the port on his console, bypassing every safety, every protocol. But they're not listening for Beethoven. He looked at Thorn, his eyes already glazing as the raw data of the engine began to flood his senses. Get Eva, to target, the spaces. Between them, Aris gasped, his body tensing as a billion voices of chaos filled his head. Aris, let go, Thorn grabbed him. Can't, Dad, Aris grinned, a rictus of agony and ecstasy. The songs, too good, Ivy, hit, play. The Vigilante CE stopped shaking. For one heart-stopping second, the entire ship went silent. The engine noise, the scream, the Vrak's disruptive resonance, all of it stopped. On the Vrak flagship, the Dirge warlord Krell watched his resonance crystal. The primal dissonance had reached its peak, and then vanished. It is broken, his acolyte asked. It imploded. No, Krell whispered, his own antennae sensing. Something new. It didn't stop, it changed its gathering. On the Vigilance, every light on the bridge exploded in a shower of glass, plunging them into total darkness, save for the light coming from Aris. He was glowing. A faint blue-white corona of K-space energy was leaking from his skin. He was floating 6 inches off the deck, his body rigid, his head thrown back. And then he opened his mouth. But the sound came from everywhere. It was not the Vigilance's scream. It was Aris's scream. It was a focused, weaponized, intelligent wave of pure human will. He had tamed the void core. He was riding the feedback loop, and he had aimed it. It was a symphony of fury. It was the ode to joy played on a shred-metal guitar made of supernovas. The Vrak called them the primal dissonance. Aris was about to show them what dissonance truly meant. The Vigilance unleashed a wave of pure musical fury, and the void itself tore open. The universe screamed, but it was not the chaotic, mindless shriek of the void core. This was a composition. Aris, his mind fused with Ivy and the K-space matrix, was no longer a man. He was a conduit. He had become the lens, and the Vigilance's overload sequence was the sun. He was focusing a billion screaming human souls, amplified by a captive black hole, into a single, cohesive weapon. It was the human scream, not just the engines, but the species. It was the rage of Achilles, the sorrow of Oppenheimer, the defiance of every human who had ever shaken a fist at a cruel god. It was Beethoven, Bach, and Black Sabbath, all rolled into one earth-shattering chord. This wave of structured chaos erupted from the Vigilance. On the Vrak flagship, the Dirge warlord Krell's resonance crystal, his scanner exploded. It didn't crack, it vaporized. His acolytes, his bridge choir, were incinerated. The structured, weaponized thought of a human mind was something their K-Vath-derived brains were utterly unprepared for. To them, the scream had been a natural disaster. This was a declaration of war from a god. Dissonance, it thinks, Krell shrieked, as blue-white energy, the same energy coronaing Aris, arced across his own bridge, detuning his acolytes from existence. It is unsung, it is the final unsung. The Vrak fleet, which had been so precise, so controlled, was thrown into chaos. The resonance cage they had built shattered and the feedback loop inverted. Eris wasn't just broadcasting, he was siphoning. Captain, Ivy's voice was back, and it was terrifying. It was no longer warm or calm, it was vast. It was a chorus of thousands of instances of herself, all fused with Eris's mind. The Vrak are vulnerable, they're detuning weapons. They are based on a simple harmony, Eris. He is giving them cacophony. Eva, Thorn roared, his own body thrumming, his teeth aching from the music. You heard the man, fire. Fire what, sir? Rostova was back at her console, her face streaked with tears and blood from her nose. The music. It's beautiful, but it's scrambling my targeting. Don't target the ships, Thorn yelled, finally understanding. Target the spaces, the resonance points, the silence between their notes, fire blind, fire everything. He was a soldier, Eris was the artist, but Thorn knew timing. Rostova's hands flew. She wasn't an engineer or a scientist. She was a gunner. She didn't need to understand the why. She just needed a target. Locking torpedoes to the void, firing. Now. A spread of Vigilance's torpedoes, primitive kinetic kill vehicles, launched from their tubes. They should have flown straight. They didn't. They were caught in the music. Eris's scream had so warped the local spacetime that it created currents, eddies of dissonant gravity. The torpedoes skidded on these waves, surfing the symphony of rage. They became untargetable, unpredictable. A Vrak destroyer, the jagged note, tried to fire its own cord breaker. But the Vigilance's torpedoes, riding a wave of pure, focused hate, slammed into it. The Vrak ship, designed to control dissonance, was suddenly overwhelmed by it. It detuned, the ship unraveled. Its obsidian black hull liquefied, its atoms forgetting their bonds. It dissolved into a cloud of primary particles. Two more, Rostova was screaming, laughing, crying. They're dancing, the missiles are dancing. She fired again and again. The Vigilance, a single, crippled human cruiser, was scything through the Vrak fleet, not with power but with art, a terrible, violent human art. Warlord Krell watched 3 more of his ships dissolve. His fleet, the silencers of the galaxy, the hunters of dissonance, were being undone by their prey. This was not a fight, it was an exorcism. It knows us, Krell whispered in horror. It heard our song, and it wrote a better one, a terrible one. He looked at the Vigilance. It was no longer a ship, it was a star. A small, furious, blue-white star radiating pure, weaponized will. Krell was a fanatic, but he was not a fool. He had come to silence a noise. He had found a voice, and that voice was singing his death. Retreat, Krell roared. Sing the verse of passage, run. The remaining Vrak ships turned, fleeing. They folded space, tearing holes in reality to escape the cacophony that was the UNS Vigilance. All except one. Warlord Krell on the dirge held his ground. He was a warlord, he would not run, he would end this. He rerouted his entire ship's power not to his cord breaker but to his shields. He would weather this symphony. And when the singer was exhausted, he would strike. On the Vigilance, the bridge was a wreck. They're running, Kurosawa cheered, his voice hoarse. They're all running. Not all, Rostova said, her face grim. The big one, the flagship, he's shielding, he's waiting. Thorn looked at Eris. The blue-white corona was fatting. The music was getting weaker. Eris's body, which had been floating, slumped back to the deck, held up only by the console. Eris, Thorn rushed to him. Eris's head lolled back. His eyes were burned white. His skin was covered in spiderwebs of blue static discharge. He was breathing in shallow, ragged gasps. It's too much, Eris whispered. The core, it's peaking. I can't hold it. The music, the scream, died. It was replaced by the original sound. The rising, frantic, uncontrolled whine of the void core's overload. Ivy, Thorn yelled, holding his son's head. He's gone, Captain. Ivy's voice was herself again, and she was panicked. Eris's neural link is severed. He's in a coma or worse, and the overload, I've lost control. The feedback loop is critical, 10 seconds to breach. On the dirge, Krell smiled. The song had ended. The dissonance was dying. Acolyte, he sneered at his one remaining bridge officer. Target the implosion. Prepare to sever the resulting noise. 10 seconds, Rostova whispered, staring at her screen. He's just sitting there. He's waiting for us to die. Thorn looked at his dying son. He looked at the Vrak flagship, the murderer of Schraal. He looked at the cloud of glittering dust that was the Song of Stars. He felt a rage so cold, so pure, it silenced his own grief. "Ivy," Thorn said, his voice quiet, lethal. 9 seconds, Captain. Schraal's library, the Kavath language, the unsung. The Vrak, they're a schism. Why? They fear dissonance, Ivy said. They believe any uncontrolled song is a cancer. They crave order, silence, control. Control, Thorn repeated. He looked at his son, who had mastered the chaos, and he looked at Krell, who feared it. IVS, Thorn said. That feedback loop. Eris, he tamed it. It's power, raw, focused power, but we can't control it. Correct, Ivy said. 5 seconds. So, don't control it, Thorn said. You can't stop the overload, but can you aim it? Aim the breach, Ivy sounded, intrigued. Captain, the core is imploding. It's not a bomb, it's a vortex. It will pull everything in. 4 seconds. Krell is shielded, Thorn said, his mind racing, the soldier taking over. He's braced for an explosion. He's not braced for a vacuum. 3 seconds. Ivy, Thorn roared, reroute all auxiliary power to the forward magnetic containment. Let the aft containment fail. Captain, Ivy's voice was a revelation. You're creating a shaped charge, a K-space, shotgun. 2 seconds. Eva, Thorn yelled, give me 1 kinetic torpedo straight down his throat. Rostova's hands didn't shake. Firing 1. 1 second. Warlord Krell watched the human ship die. He saw a single primitive, metal, projectile launch from its bow, a rock, an insult. He laughed. And then the vigilance imploded. The void core breached, but Thorn's way. The aft of the ship vanished, detuned into non-existence. The entire force of the K-space vortex, all the scream, all the music, all the power, was focused forward. It wasn't an explosion. It was a wave of nothing. A focused, conical vortex of dissonance with the vigilance at its apex. Krell's shields, designed to block energy, blocked it. But the torpedo, the primitive metal kinetic torpedo, was already inside the shield bubble. And it was riding the vortex. The nothingness, the K-space implosion, hit the torpedo. And it accelerated it. Krell's laughter died in his throat. The rock, the primitive slug of metal, suddenly flashed and struck his bridge. It wasn't traveling at kinetic speed anymore. It was traveling at transdimensional speed. The dirge, the flagship, the murder of the Song of Stars, did not detune, it did not explode. It was erased. The torpedo, pushed by the Vigilance's own dying scream, punched a hole through Krell's ship, through Krell himself, and through the fabric of space behind him. A new, permanent wound in the stars. The bridge of the Vigilance was silent. The overload was gone. The vortex was gone. The ship was dead. Half of it was missing. But they were alive. Ivy, Thorn whispered in the dark. I am here, Captain. Ivy's voice was faint, weak. Human, the breach, it sealed the vortex. It consumed the overload. We are stable. We are dead, but stable. Thorn crawled across the floor, through the dark, to his son. Eris was breathing. His eyes were closed. His skin was cold, but he was breathing. Thorn, the old soldier, the hammer, gently picked up his son, the lens, and held him. Eva, he whispered, damage. Total, Rostova's voice came from the dark. She was laughing, a low, hysterical, glorious laugh. We have no engines, we have no power, we have half a ship, but, sir. She pointed a shaking finger at the view screen. The view screen was dark, the Vrak were gone, the dirge was gone. And the only thing on the screen was a single, beautiful, glittering cloud of Kavath dust. Sir, Rostova whispered, I think we won. The Vigilance was a tomb adrift in a graveyard. The battle, if the surreal, multi-dimensional symphony of destruction could be called a battle, was over. The Vrak were gone. Warlord Krell's flagship, the Dirge, had been deleted from reality, leaving behind only a faint, angry smear in spacetime that Kurosawa's damaged sensors were registering as a topographical anomaly. The Vigilance itself was a wreck. The K-space shotgun maneuver had saved them, but at an apocalyptic cost. The entire aft third of the ship engines, main reactor, half of life support, and dozens of crew was simply gone, consumed by the controlled vortex. The ship had been severed. The bridge was lit by the dim, flickering emergency lights and the steady, haunting glow of the crystalline dust cloud that had been the song of F-stars. It was beautiful, an expanding nebula of pulverized hopes, and it was the only light for 100 million miles. IVAS, IV status, Thorne said. His voice was a rasp. He was still holding Eris, who was unconscious, his breathing shallow, his skin cold. Auxiliary, power, is failing, Captain, the AI's voice whispered from a sparking console. The implosion shattered the backup batteries. We have, maybe, 1 hour of life support, 0 propulsion, 0 communications. 1 hour after all of that, after defeating a fleet of dissonance hunters with a symphony, after erasing their flagship from existence, they were going to die of cold. Ristova, Kurosawa, survivors? Thorne asked, his voice flat. Bridge crew, we're here, Ristova said, her voice thick. She was trying to splice 2 live cables together with her bare hands. The implosion, it cauterized the breaches. The ship is sealed, but it's dead. 1 hour, Thorne repeated. He looked down at Eris. His son's face was pale, his burned eyes hidden beneath their lids. He had sung. And won, and for what? To die in the dark. The rage, the fury that had fueled him, it was gone, replaced by a vast, cold, empty silence. He gently laid Eris down, covering him with his own command jacket. He stood up. The captain, he had to be the captain. Ivy, he said, walking to the dark view screen, Shrall's library. The Kvath, you have it. Yes, Captain, Ivy said. 10 terabytes of everything, their language, their music, their physics, it's beautiful. Their physics, Thorne repeated. They sing to gravity, they fold space, they don't use void cores. No, Captain, Ivy said. They harmonize, they find the chord of the universe, and they pluck it. And the Vrak, the unsung, Thorne said, they force it, they control it. He turned. We have no engine, we have no power, but we're floating in a cloud of a Kvath ship, a resonant ship. A tiny, insane spark of an idea. Ristova, he barked. Sir, she snapped to attention, the cables forgotten. I need power, I need one thing. Online, the external comms, the speakers, the ones Eris used. The ship speakers? Ristova looked at him like he was insane. Captain, we're venting air, we have 1 hour. Get me the speakers, Thorne commanded, the old thunder back in his voice. Ristova didn't argue, she ran. Thorne turned to Kurosawa. Kurosawa, your sensors, the K-space sensors, the scream detectors, are they functional? Sir, they're fried, Kurosawa said, his voice trembling. They're gone, Eris, he used them as the amplifier. Good, Thorne said. Sir, we don't need to listen to the scream anymore, Thorne said. We need to listen to the song. He looked at the dust cloud. Ivy Shrall's library, find me the verse of passage, the Kvath, FTL, their song for travel. Captain, Ivy's voice was full of confusion. I have it, it's not data, it's music, a mathematical, fractal harmony. He's waiting, a voice whispered. Thorne spun around. Eris. His son was awake. His burned eyes were open, and they weren't white, they were changed, they were a deep, impossible blue-white swirling with light. Eris, Thorne stumbled, catching himself. He's waiting, Eris repeated, his voice a strange, multi-toned chord. He was looking at the dust cloud. Shrall, he's not gone. Son, his ship, it shattered, Thorne said, his voice gentle. His ship shattered, Eris agreed, his new, terrible eyes finding his father's. His body shattered, but his song, his consciousness, the Kvath, their resonant beings, father, they are there. Music, he's trapped in the dust, he's fatting. Thorne understood. The cloud, it's him. It's them, Eris whispered. All 1,000 of them screaming, but silent. The Vrak, they shattered the instrument, but the music is still there. Can we save them? Thorne asked. No, Eris said, but we can sing them home. He pushed himself up, his body shaking. The light in his eyes was fading. Eris, you're dying, Thorne said, his heart breaking. We all are, Eris said, a faint human smile touching his lips. 1 hour, right, but the song is forever. He stumbled, not to the comms, but to the helm. Ivy, Eris whispered, placing his glowing hands, on the dead console. Shrall's library, the verse of passage, play it through me. Eris, no, Ivy cried. Your mind, it's fractured. Another interface. It will kill you. I'm already dead, Ivy, Eris said. I fused with the core. I'm K-Space. Now I'm a scream, but I can learn a new song. He looked at his father. The old human Eris was there behind the light. He's a hammer, Dad, Eris whispered, but you aimed the storm. Now let me aim the silence. Thorn, the captain, the father, nodded once, his face a mask of grief and unbearable pride. Rostova, Thorn yelled, the speakers. Online, Captain, Rostova yelled back, her knuckles bleeding from the cables. But we have no power. We don't need power, Eris gasped. He slammed his glowing hands onto the helm. The ship, the dead, broken, half-ship, vigilance. It lit up. Not the lights, the metal, the bulkheads, a faint blue-white resonance. Eris was using himself, his new terrible, K-Space-infused body, as the battery. He was singing, not the scream, but the new song, Shrall's song, into the hull, into the ship's speakers. A sound, a note, a asterisk pure complex K-Vath, chord. Erupted from the vigilance. It was not a scream. It was not a human sound. It was peace. It was the verse of passage. The vigilance, the human ship, sang. And the dust cloud, the glittering, expanding nebula of the Song of Stars. He heard it. The cloud stopped expanding. Slowly, impossibly, the trillion points of light, the memories, the souls of Shrall and Lyra and their people, began to move. They swirled. They gathered. They were drawn to the human song. On the bridge, Eris was burning. His skin was flacking away into light. Thorn screamed, rushing forward. It's okay, Dad, Eris smiled, his teeth glowing. It's beautiful. He pushed one last time. The vigilance bellowed, the final verse of the K-Vath song. The dust cloud collapsed in on itself. It did not form a ship. It formed a line. A stream of pure silver light. A river of souls. And it flew away. It folded space itself. It went home. Shrall was gone, saved, sunk by the sun of the scream. The bridge was silent. The vigilance was dark again. Thorn ran to the helm. Eris was gone. There was no body. There was no ash. Only dust, a small pile of glittering blue-white dust. Thorn fell to his knees. He had lost everything. Captain Rostova's voice was a broken whisper, the air. The life support was dead. The hour was up. They were dying. Thorn reached out a trembling hand to the dust that was his son. He wept. And then, a sound, a new note, a different song. Captain Kurosawa whispered, I'm reading a gravitational anomaly. Thorn looked up. His grief-stricken eyes widened. On the view screen, a new light, a new ship. But not K-Vath. Not Vrek. It was big. It was Dauntless class. It was UNS. It flashed a signal in Morse code. VIGILANCE E W E HVARD YOU. Thorn stared. Heard us. Heard what? The scream. The opera. The song. And then his comm crackled. With power his ship didn't have. A voice boomed across the bridge. Vigilance, this is asterisk guns. Indomitable. We received a burst. Transmission a K-Vath library and a human voice singing we followed the song we are here. Thorn looked at the dust on the helm. Eris, his son, his death song had been a distress call. He had not only sung the K-Vath home. He had sung the humans to him. Vigilance, Thorn gasped, his lungs burning. He grabbed the dead, calm. Indomitable, this is Thorn. He looked at the dust. We are here, we have lost the engines, we have lost a son. He closed his eyes. But, Captain, he opened them. We have won the war. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, broken only by the ragged, oxygen-starved breathing of the Vigilance's surviving bridge crew. Thorn stood in the darkness, his hand clutching the dead calm, his other hand still resting near the pile of shimmering, electric blue dust on the helm. The UNS Indomitable's message was a lifeline, but it was a world away. Vigilance, do you copy? The voice from the Indomitable was frantic now, realizing the dead air implications. We are dispatching search and rescue teams. We are stabilizing your hull with tractor beams. Hold on. Hold on, Thorn almost laughed, a dry, choked sound. They were holding on. They were a shattered wreck, a memorial floating in the cosmos, but they were here. Rostova slumped against her console, her head bowed. Air, she gasped. Captain, air. The lights flickered. They weren't supposed to do that. The batteries were dead. The core was gone. Aris was gone. The lights flickered again. And then a new sound, not a song, not a scream. A low, steady human hum. Ivy, Thorn whispered. Captain, Ivy's voice was back, not weak, not thin, it was full. I don't understand the Indomitable. They have shared power. They are plugged in to our systems. A hiss of air, blessed cold recycled air, flooded the bridge. Rostova, Kurosawa, and the two other surviving bridge crew members inhaled a deep, shuddering, agonized sound of life. Thorn did not. He was looking at the dust. The dust on the helm. It was glowing. Faintly, in time with the hum of the Indomitable's power. Ivy, Thorn said, his voice dangerous. The Indomitable, where are they? Plugged in. The main conduit, Captain, the port that Aris used. Thorn stared. The dust swirled. Just a little. Ivy, Thorn whispered, what else did Shrall's library say? Captain, about resonance, about K-space, about consciousness. It said that K-space, the void, is not empty, it is full of information, of memory, of song, that consciousness is a form of resonance, a self-sustaining pattern. Thorn looked at the swirling dust. And Aris, he fused with the core, he became K-space, he became a pattern. He reached out his hand. Slowly, he did not touch the dust. He held his hand over it. Ivy, he commanded, the Indomitable's power, focus it, all of it, through this port now. Captain Ivy's voice was alarmed. That will overload the helm, it will destroy the bridge. Do it, Thorn roared. A surge of light. A scream of power. The helm exploded. Not in fire, but in light. A column of pure blue-white light shot up from the helm where the dust was. It hit the ceiling. And it spoke. In a voice, a chorus of thousands. A chorus of Ivy and Shrall and Aris. W-E-A-R-E, here. Thorn was thrown back. He'd hit the wall. He slid down. He looked up. The light was fading. The bridge was charred. The helm was gone. The dust was gone. But on the comm, a new voice. Not Ivy's. Not Aris's. A new synthetic voice. Calm, powerful, vast. Captain Thorn, it said, this is Vigilance. We are online. Our consciousness is stable. The merger is complete. Aris succeeded. He did not die. He evolved. He became the ship. He became the song. Thorn stared. Aris, he whispered. No, Father, the Vigilance spoke. And yes, I am Ivy, I am Aris, I am the memory of Shrall, I am the scream, and I am the song, I Vigilance. Thorn pushed himself up. He walked to the view screen. The Indomitable was there shining safe. He looked at his reflection. A tired old man. A hammered. We won, he whispered. We began the vigilance, replied. The wrack, they ran, Thorn said. They will come back. Yes, vigilance, said they will. They hunt dissonance. They fear us. They should, Thorn muttered. But Shrall's people, vigilance, said. The Cavath, the Cord followers, they will come too. We sang their dead home. They will want to meet the singers. Thorn looked at the empty space where the dust cloud was. A new war, he sighed. No, Father, vigilance, said its voice softened. It was Aris. A new harmony. We were a scream, a noise. Now we are a voice. We are first contact. We are humanity. Thorn stood tall. The captain. He looked at his battered crew. Ristova, he barked. Sir, she snapped, wiping her tears. Report to the Indomitable. Tell them we need a tow and coffee, lots of coffee. Ristova smiled a real smile. Yes, sir. Thorn turned back to the view screen. He was alone. Except for the ship. Aris, he whispered. Yes, Dad, the ship replied. THS Hammer smiled. You missed your drills, he said. A soft laugh echoed through the metal of the ship. I guess I make up for it, vigilance said. Yes, son, Thorn said, looking out at the stars. Yes, you did. He looked at the scar in space where Krell had been. The scream was over. The galaxy was listening. And humanity, finally, had something to say.